Hey guys, Richard Laurie here again with PBG, Territory Manager, Southern California. I'm here again today with Charlotte and Norm, and we're going to make a third video in our series of virtual clinic videos. After the first one, we talked about base coat, and I got a couple of calls and messages that says, hey, what happened to the Clearcoat? So we're going to talk about Clearcoat today. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about Clearcoat choices. The Clearcoat choices you make can determine how well or how poorly the job is going to turn out. We're also going to talk about application. I always come back to wetting. Wetting is a big thing for me because when product wets on a panel, it's working. If it doesn't wet on the panel, and we're going to try and get close with the camera on how the Clearcoat should wet. A couple of comments on the base coat when we couldn't see the video, we couldn't see the base coat clearly. Slow it down and get in closer. We're going to try and do that for you on this one. And then we're also going to talk something very important is when you polish Clearcoat, you take off film weight. You remove some of the film thickness. And the Clearcoat is there to protect the base coat. So we need at least 2 mils over the base coat to protect it. When you polish that Clearcoat off, you're reducing it. We want to make sure you're not taking too much off. So we're going to take a couple of different angles about how to know whether or not you've taken too much off. And we'll actually polish a panel. So I think we can get into it. Let's go and start talking about Clearcoat choices. If you're spraying EnviroBase in a regulated market, then you're probably going to be spraying one of these 3 EC clears. In non-regulated markets, I understand if you're using EnviroBase, you have different choices. I won't speak to those right now. I just want to focus on these. And we have 1 hardener that goes with these clears, and we have 4 reducers. But the driver for the decision of which of these to use is simple. How big is my job? Is it a 1-panel job? Is it a multi-panel, 2, 3, 4-panel job? Am I going down the side? Am I doing a complete? That, along with temperature, how hot is it in my spray booth, is going to determine which one of these clears I'm going to go with. Once I've made that decision, I'm going to choose the hardener. Well, it's really only 1 hardener. I'm going to put the hardener in. It's the 3-to-1 ratio. But when I've got that mix, now I've got to go down here. If I picked a 520, for example, and I'm doing 2 or 3 or 4 panels, and it's in the warmer end of the temperature range for 520, I'm probably going to go with a 98 or at least an 85, maybe a 98. If it comes down in temperature and job size, I've made the decision to go with 520. I could come down. If I'm doing a mirror and it's cool, I'm using 520, I'll probably go with 65 or something like that. The point I'm making is you have 3 clear coats to choose from, and you have a second choice of solvents to choose to really refine that choice and hone that clear coat in to do the best possible job for the temperature and the job size of the vehicle you're working on. Another choice you have to make when you've made your clear coat choices and you're about to step in the booth is you got to make a gun choice. There's some fantastic guns out there on the market. I just picked up a couple here of Iwatas, but here's a common thing I see a lot. Any manufacturer of gun, Iwata, SATA, Tekna, any of those guys, they put out both a clear coat gun and a base coat gun, and I often see those mixed up. I see a guy shooting clear coat through his base coat gun, a base coat through his clear coat gun, and I'll say, hey, don't do that. Put clear coat in this gun and the base coat. That's how it works. Put the base coat in the right gun and the clear coat in the right gun. So let's say you pick the right gun, and I don't care if it's a SATA, a Tekna, a DeVilbiss, Iwata, it doesn't matter what it is. If you like it and it works for you, I want you to keep using that gun. You don't have to get the latest and greatest if it works. But there are a couple of things about the gun you should also consider. One is fluid tip size. When I'm spraying any of these clears here, I want to make sure I'm using the right fluid tip size. Don't use something too small and don't use something too big. We say a range in our tech sheets of 1.2 to 1.4. I like to go with a 1.3. If I'm doing a complete and I want to move a bit quicker, I might go up to 1.4. But generally speaking, on a 1 or 2, 3, 4 panel job, I'm going to be using my 1.3. The other thing about the fluid tip is don't choke it down. There are some cases where you might want to feather something out, I don't know, but for the most part, if I'm doing a big panel, you want full trigger and let the fluid tip control the fluid flow. So fluid tip size correct, full trigger is correct. And the third thing I want to talk about on equipment is the regulator. We always use regulators. You should not be regulating with this. This is a micrometer. This up here, if you can regulate the air pressure, it's only for small 1 or 2 pound incremental adjustments. I want to first regulate it on the wall and on a 25-foot hose with a 3/8 ID. I've got about a 16, I've measured this several times, I've got about a 16 PSI drop. Point is, I want about at least 30 pounds coming to my gun. Then I regulate it with this. Now, here's what I want to say about regulators. They're not all created equal. An Iwata makes a regulator for their guns. SATA makes a regulator for their guns. So if you've got an Iwata or a SATA or a DeVilbiss, put their regulator on. Don't use a generic, because what happens is typically these will adjust PSI without affecting volume. These things work on volume. If I put a generic one on there and turn it down, not only does it turn down the pressure, it also reduces volume. And that's kind of like you buy a Ferrari, you put a generic on there, and now it performs like an old jalopy. So you want your Ferrari to perform like a Ferrari, make sure you got the fluid tip right, you're using the full trigger, you've got the right Clearcoat mixture, and you've got the right regulator on there, the one that was made for that gun. Hey, let's go and spray some clear and show you wetting. Right guys, we're gonna go in the spray booth now and we're gonna spray a panel. Actually, we're gonna do two in this demo, but right now we're gonna spray one panel. Here's the scenario. Let's say you're a painter in a shop and I bring in a clear coat and I mix it up and I give you the gun and I say, hey, spray this and tell me what you think. When you spray that clear, you know instantly if you like that clear or not. And the reason you either like it or dislike it is based on how it wets out. You might not have heard of that term before, but when you first make that first pass, how it hits a panel and just lays down, sheets out instantly. If you're a painter, you know what I'm talking about. It rolls your socks up and down, you really like it. Of course, it's got to have gloss and polishes and all that other good stuff, but that's par for the course. As a painter, you want it to wet out quickly. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to try and capture wetting. I hope I can, I'm going to try. And the goal is to show you good wetting on this first panel. On the second panel, I'm going to call it a mystery clear. This first clear is 530, EC 530 with 85 reducer. It's 87 degrees in there. I already measured the temperature. I'll correct the pressure when I get in there. I've got the 1.3 fluid tip. It should be all good. The second one, I'm just going to call it mystery clear. I know what it is, you don't need to know. The goal of that second pass, or that second panel, is to show you hole wetting. This is when I hand you the gun, I say, tell me what you think. It sprays like this, and you say, hey, take this crap out of here. I don't want it. So let's go in there and spray this one first. So we just sprayed that, and I just stepped out because I wanted to mention one thing. Hopefully from the video shot you could see how easily that wet out. I didn't take much effort, and it just hits the panel and goes out. Then we put the first coat on there, and I hope you could see everything. But one thing I forgot to mention was this is just the fan. And when I plug the airline in and I adjust my pressure, the one thing I always do before I finalize my pressure is I adjust my fan. So if my fan is like that, quite often the fan splits. If you have it too high a pressure, it splits the fan. So I like to bring my wide fan down just a little bit on the edges so it cuts out, so I have an even pattern. I always look for that even pattern when I adjust my fan. I don't bring it down narrow, but I don't want it wide open, because wide open usually has a hot spot on either end and something thinner in the middle. So I like to bring it down a little bit to give it a clean, even flow of fan, and then I adjust my pressure, and this pressure was about 27 psi, 27 to 28 psi. All right, so now we've mixed up what I'm going to call the mystery clear. Pretty much what we've done is we've taken a clear that is not best suited for this temperature range. We're about 85, it's climbing up right now. It's about 2:45. It's going to climb up to about 90, so it may even be 90 in there right now. So we've obviously taken something that's not suited, but the point is, we know it's not suited, and the point is I want to show you I want to attempt to show you what pole wetting is. So if you see this, this is not good. So let's go in and see if I can produce a bad paint job. I didn't think I'd ever hear that. All right, we just sprayed those two panels, and in a moment, they're baking right now. In a moment, a few minutes, we're gonna go get them, bring them out, and I'm gonna show you the difference between those two panels. Just going back to those panels for a second though, you'll notice on the first one I sprayed, which was the 530 with the 85 at the correct temperature, the gun was set up right, the air pressure was right. I adjusted my fan pattern and my air pressure going in there, and you saw how easily it wet out in that corner. But more importantly, you saw how effortless it was as I was going across. Hopefully you got that from the video. It's kind of difficult to catch that. On the second panel, and again, the intent with the second panel was to show you how not to do it, which is against the grain, really. I used a mystery clear. I'm not going to tell you what it was, but the main thing is it was mixed with all the wrong components, and I did have a little bit off on the air pressure, not too much. But what you saw, or what you should have seen, or what I felt as a sprayer in there, is how much more effort it was taking to spray that. I had to slow down, I had to back up, because it was just going on too fast. So I had to really make some changes. It wasn't comfortable. The first one was effortless, the second one required a lot more effort. And we'll see what the end result looks like. I know which one I preferred, it was the first one. Everything was done correctly. So while that's baking, I want to touch on one more thing on Clearcoat application. So over here I've got I've drawn a picture of a vehicle. We got a fender, we got a door. We have a primer patch here, surfacer, and it's sanded. Classic spot repair. We've prepped this, we've sanded this, and we've prepped this ready for a base coat application, and we've prepped this ready for a blend, and we're not going to go into the rear door. So let's say we've got our base coat, and we've done our little blend out to there, and we've got our blend out to there, and we're going to do this. We're just going to assume it's too close to not go into this. So for that reason, I'm going to put my base to there, and that's where it blended. So here's the point I'm trying to get to. When we clear coat this, I see a lot of guys in shops. What they do is they'll take first coat of clear, and they'll start here, and they'll go straight across to here, and they'll get that first coat on, and it looks really nice. They'll let it flash, and then they'll come back with another coat, and they'll go like this. I always stop a guy when I see him do that, and I try to correct him because there's a better way of doing it. The base coat is here. The base coat requires 2 wet coats for protection, for gloss and for protection. This OEM blend panel doesn't require 2 coats. So what I always have a guy do when I'm in the shop is I'll have him put his first coat of clear here. So I'm literally going to put my first coat of clear from here to here. Let that flash. And then my second coat is I'm going to go from here and cover the whole panel. I got my 2 coats here, and I only have a single coat here. And it's important because if this were a black car or a dark colored car, it wouldn't make that big of a difference. But on whites, light silvers, light beiges, those light metallics, light blues, if you apply too much clear here to this adjacent panel, it can have the effect of darkening this panel. There's nothing wrong with the clear, that's not what I'm saying. But when you increase the film weight of clear here, it'll darken it against this in many cases for certain colors. So you don't need that clear there. So let's put 2 coats of clear here and 1 coat of clear here, and that's the job done. It's important that you do get the 2 coats on here And in a moment, we're gonna go back out there and I'm gonna show you how to polish this stuff and why it's important to polish it correctly and knowing how much you're taking off. So let's go get the panels and see what they look like first.